Welcome to LOP Topic Chat. I am Kuan Luke74, and tonight's topic will be the Mothman, with co-host BugOutGirl. Now, I was researching this topic, and if you told me about the Mothman, I'd say it's total BS, but there's been over 100 sightings of the Mothman in one area, Point Pleasant, which brings me to believe there's something to this. Whether you believe it's a harbinger of doom, a demon, an angel, or an alien, it's a very interesting topic. And to start us off tonight will be our very own BugOutGirl. The mic is yours.
All right, hey guys. So first of all, the name Mothman I personally find to be a little bit misleading. Apparently, according to the actual eyewitness reports, it doesn't actually look like a moth. More so it looks like a bat with bright red eyes. That's the most distinctive feature that people say is the bright red eyes, and it's almost as if he has like either no head or no neck. The eyes appear to be kind of in his chest area. Very bizarre looking creature nonetheless. There's no photos of Mothman. Obviously the first sighting was back in the late 60s in Point Pleasant, and there's several drawings and depictions, and they all tend to look very similar or the same. So all of these witness reports, they all coincide with one another, leading you to believe that that the sightings are real. Mothman, it tends to be something basically that people feel and see. They dream about Mothman, and some people even say they have telepathic communications. Mothman has never physically injured anybody. Not a single witness has come forward to say that they've been injured by Mothman directly, that's right. However, he has terrified people, chased people. There's reports that he's chased people in their vehicles over 100 miles an hour, so he's very quick. He also has wings, and from what they say is the wings don't actually flap, and basically he seems to show up before there's a tragedy that's about to take place somewhere. So going back to Point Pleasant, they had the Silver Bridge that collapsed, and basically there were a couple hundred people who claimed that they were warned by this entity Mothman beforehand that a tragedy was going to take place. After the bridge collapsed, excuse me, he was never spotted again, at least not in Point Pleasant, but he has been sighted in other places. I'm more familiar with the Point Pleasant sightings and the cases around there. Luke, did you have anything that you wanted to add at this point?
There have been reports of the Mothman during the Chernobyl accidents, before 9/11, and even before the Minnesota bridge collapse. That one was discredited, supposedly. But the creepy thing about the Chernobyl one is he was seen in the hallways of Chernobyl a week before it happened. And one very interesting thing about the whole Point Pleasant thing is our reporter, John Keel, went down there to investigate. John Keel was also a conspiracy theorist, and he did many books and reports on UFOs and paranormal activity. And he interviewed more than a few people on the Mothman. I mean, hundreds of people, over 100 people have seen the Mothman in Point Pleasant during that time period. Many people claim the Mothman has spoken to them telepathically or person to person, giving them prophecies of things that would happen, including the bridge collapse. John Keel was never the same after the incident. He was a recluse. He was terrified of anything and everybody, and he thought everybody who came to his door was the Mothman. So something really shook him because of this. There's something to this, obviously. He's written a book about it called The Mothman Prophecies, which was turned into a movie. The book and the movie are similar in some aspects, though, but the movie, of course, has Hollywood effects and, more razzle-dazzle to it to make it more interesting, though. But the truth of the matter is, though, something did happen down there, because they have a statue down there in Point Pleasant, and a festival every year dedicated to the Mothman. And like I said before, if there's like one or two things, reports of it, I would say this is BS. But you have over 100 people in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, who's claimed to have seen this Mothman. And it's chased cars. It's kept up with cars going 60 miles an hour. People looked directly at the Mothman and its red eyes, and they had effects from it the next day. Their face would be red and puffy, and their vision would be blurred. So, BugOutGirl, I kind of tend to believe when 100 people have seen something like this, there's something to it. Don't you agree?
I absolutely agree, and I mean, because of the nightmares and the telepathy and those types of claims, it leads me to believe that it's not just like an animal. There's people that are trying to dismiss it as a large bird or a crane or stuff like that, and I mean it's supposedly 6 or 8 feet tall, it just doesn't come off to me as an animal. To me, it seems more like some type of spiritual being. And I don't know at this point if I could really say if it's something that's evil. I was thinking maybe it enjoys the fear that it can instill into others, and maybe it's feeding off of that fear, or maybe it's some type of angel or some type of alien of some type that's really trying to warn people about these tragedies that take place, and is it trying to help people? Really, we don't know.
Charlotte, I can say what it isn't. It's not a sandhill crane. It's not a heron. I've had a heron go right over my car at night. Not even close. An owl, there's nothing big enough to be that. I believe the accounts. There are too many accounts of it chasing cars and that. And a lot of paranormal activity in the whole general area for quite a while. There were reports of a pair of white dogs with glowing red eyes. They called them the devil dogs. There were also a few cattle mutilations. So it was paranormal activity, and I tend to look to an interdimensional or a supernatural answer for it rather than something it came from space, although it has to be said that there were also UFO reports.
Very well said. And I know one thing it's not either, it's a demon, because demons don't give good advice. This thing gives warnings out before things happen. I never heard of a demon doing it before, or a fallen angel, or a jinn, or whatever you want to call it, this creature. It's not an angel either, because, I mean, people are scared. Look at these eyes, and a wave of fear, a paranoia comes over them, too. So what exactly is this creature? I think it's a multi-dimensional creature, basically. Maybe it was a former fallen angel that's trying to turn good again, possibly. I mean, it's warned people about the bridge collapse. There's also a report over in Germany, in Freiburg, Germany, of a mine collapse. And before the mine collapse, this Mothman has been claimed to be seen there more than a few times. So this is actually a worldwide event, but that's not local though. But the most famous case of all, of course, is the Point Pleasant case, where sightings happened for almost a year before the bridge collapsed. And like I said, John Keel, a reporter, went down there to investigate. And as you've seen the movie, The Mothman Prophecies, which to me gave me chills. I watch other movies about conspiracy stuff, Fire in the Sky, and various other ones, and I was never had chills. But this one gave me chills. Because supposedly this thing called John Keel on the phone, talked to him. And supposedly, before the bridge collapsed, he had his dead wife ready to talk to him. Some people say the Mothman can disguise his voice, or change his voice as needed. But why Point Pleasant, though? Why Point Pleasant? The bridge collapsed, yes, about 50 or so people died. I think it was, the actual number is 49 people. Why a localized event? Why there? And not only was it's just a Mothman, other things were happening too, like Scarlett said. There was UFOs in the area, mutilated dogs, mutilated cows. So this thing, alien nature, a dimensional being, a fallen angel trying to redeem itself, or maybe it's mass hysteria. Well, you don't get mass hysteria from 100 people, though. You get it from probably about 10, 20 people at the most. But people would be driving down the street, and the Mothman would be in the tree, staring at them. And they were hypnotized by it almost, just staring at it. But the thing, what gets me, though, is just not an occurrence, though. This thing tries to warn people. It talks to people telepathically. It gives prophecies. Tells the future that come to pass. And a horrible accident did happen in Point Pleasant. A bridge that collapsed. And many people died because of it. And many people who died were the ones who saw the Mothman, too. That's the creepy part about it. More than a dozen people who saw the Mothman were on that bridge when it collapsed. And the Mothman tried to warn them.
Sorry to interrupt you. I read that, too, that a lot of the victims on the bridge, they either saw Mothman themselves or they were related to somebody who had a sighting as well. But the thing is it's a small town, right? So the chances that it's somebody who saw or knew somebody who saw is fairly likely, in my opinion. What I don't understand is why exactly did the bridge collapse. I mean, half of the stories I read say that they don't know why it collapsed, and then there's other stories that I read that say it was because of a fault on the bridge because it was old and poorly maintained. But we do know that there was an issue with the traffic lights on the bridge, and the bridge was loaded with cars. I think that the bridge collapsed from having too much weight. And I don't think that the Mothman actually caused it. I think he was merely giving a warning about it. Some people think that he caused the trauma, but I don't personally think that he did. I think he just knew it was going to happen, and the bridge collapsed from the weight. That's my opinion on that, anyways.
Now, H2K asked me, how did you know the people on the bridge saw the Mothman? Because they were interviewed by John Keel. And it was in his book, too. The people he interviewed who claimed to saw the Mothman were on that bridge and died from it. I mean, like 10 or 15 people actually survived the plunge into the river, but most of them did die, though. And there's a creepy thing about the whole thing, including the movie, too, that these people saw the Mothman. Some were warned, some weren't, and they were on that bridge. So, I mean, then he said, I watched the show on the Mothman. Yeah, I watched the movie, and that's just, whew. H2K, anything to add for us, please?
I have a few things, but I don't want to drastically hold over the mic. The Mothman was obviously seen all over the world, right? And he was seen in Point Pleasant, I believe in 1966, and that movie depicting Richard Keel, which was actually Richard Gere, was taking place in like 2002. So that's kind of bullshit to begin with, and it wasn't. It was filmed in Philadelphia. So like I would kind of put that all out of your head to begin with immediately when it comes to the Mothman.
Yeah, but with Hollywood, they get to razzle dazzle, or nobody's going to watch it, though. You know, I do that with Fire in the Sky, I do it with other movies, and for once, I love to see them stick to the plot. They don't do that, though, of course. You know, they want to give you some nice special effects, some more storyline to it, make it more interesting, though. But read the book, though. John Keel was a normal guy before this happened. Afterwards, he was totally different. Even his friends said he was different, the way he acted, and the paranoia and the fear that came over him. John Keel has about 10 books out there, to be honest. And he was a reporter. He's really well written, intelligent guy. He wouldn't make this kind of stuff up. I mean, obviously you have him, then you have all the witnesses, then you have... Not only was the Mothman seen in Point Pleasant, it was seen in the surrounding area too, in some other cities. So it just wasn't localized in one city, which is interesting in itself. What else do you have for us, BugOutGirl?
Another thing that I wanted to add, there is physical evidence of Mothman. There were reports of witnesses getting red, swollen eyes. It did happen to one of the guys in the movie, yes, but that's based on real evidence, and it never healed. They say it was from the UV exposure from the bright lights of the UFOs and the Mothman and all that kind of stuff. So I find that to be pretty bizarre. I mean, it's kind of hard to deny at that point. One other thing that I learned that I found was quite fascinating. Mothman, there were weird, strange reports of him and blood. For example, first of all, he chased a blood donor vehicle. So there's rumors that maybe it's attracted to blood, almost kind of like a vampire would be. Also, there were several women who reported being chased by him in their vehicles, and it turns out that they were all having their menstrual period during this time that Mothman was chasing them. I just find that to be very bizarre. It really does sound like a vampire thing, but he's never bit anybody or physically harmed anybody directly, so he's not a vampire. So what's the deal? What's with the attraction to the blood? I don't know.
Also, Mothman isn't, most people don't consider an alien, and I guess that's funny that you mentioned UFOs there, BugOutGirl, so I guess that should bring us to our next point of how is Indrid Cold related?
I was going to bring that up too. As you all know, I bring the woo, and this is a woo segment now. Ingrid Cold. I looked this guy up. He was in the movie. Ingrid Cole was the Mothman in the movie, but if you look up Ingrid Cole in lore, it's a different kind of a creature. It comes from a UFO. It's humanoid in nature. And the Ingrid Cole sightings happened alongside with the Mothman sightings in Point Pleasant. Some people think it's the same thing, basically. HK was telling me earlier, people down there believe it's one and the same, basically. Ingrid Cole and the Mothman are one and the same. Well, with Ingrid Cole, though, we have reports of Ingrid Cole coming out of a UFO in Point Pleasant. And there's some UFO sightings at the same time, like I said. And this is interesting, though. You have two phenomena happening in the same place. Like I said, the locals think it's the same thing. What do you have for us on Ingrid Cole, BugOutGirl?
I don't really know a whole lot about Indrid Cole. Very fascinating. They call him the Grinning Man. He appears to be a good guy. I almost think it sounds like some type of reptilian shapeshifter shit. Like that's a lot of this actually reminds me of that. I mean, if Mothman can take on the voice and shape of individuals, that to me sounds like a reptilian. And I know that sounds super crazy or wooey, as you call it. But yeah, and I've also heard that some people think that Indrid Cold and the Mothman are one and the same, but I don't know. I don't believe that. I just think maybe they're all kind of part of the same phenomenon that's going on. But yeah, I really don't know a whole lot about him, but very fascinating though, indeed. Oh, and apparently when he talks, his lips don't move. He talks telepathically. It's bizarre.
We have a comment from the room in LOP chat, Lunatic Outpost. PB says, mass hysteria manifesting fears dormant in collective unconsciousness. It could be mass hysteria. That's another reason for it, though. We have over 100 people on different days throughout the year claiming to see this Mothman. Mothra comes to play. Haha. But could it be mass hysteria? One person has seen something, and oh, I've seen it too, and everyone wants to get in on the action a little bit. Everybody wants them to claim the fame. Oh yeah, I've seen the alien too, kind of thing. But when you have physical effects from it, though, it's not mass hysteria, in my opinion. Like BugOutGirl said, puffy red eyes. They have headaches afterwards, bad headaches the next day. So what exactly is this thing? Scarlett, what do you think this is? What are the possibilities that this thing could be?
Talk to you telepathically can probably affect you pretty badly. Say that Indrid Cold wasn't simply a telepathic projection that everybody saw. Could be a visitor from space, in which what are its motives and why is it here and how did it know the bridge was going to collapse, and that's just very unlikely. I really don't know. I've always been very curious about this one because I was in high school when it happened and I saw the news footage and all. It was pretty.
I knew nothing about this when the movie came out, to be honest. I mean, I'm a big fan of paranormal and conspiracy stuff, and I maybe glanced at it though, but then I watched the movie because Richard Gere's in it. He's a famous, good actor. At least some people think so, anyways. But BugOutGirl, let me ask you a question. Okay, you're driving down the street, okay, nighttime, 1 o'clock in the morning, and you look to the right. There's this huge creature, probably about 7 foot tall, a wingspan of about 10 feet, and it's flying neck and neck with your car, going 60 miles an hour. What are you thinking?
Honestly, I like to think that I would stop my car and get a photo or maybe take a photo as I'm driving, but I think what happens is this thing gets into your head and it instills irrational fear in your mind. Even though it doesn't physically hurt you, people are very afraid of it. So yeah, I like to think I'd be brave and be that person that gets a photo, but the reality is I'd probably be very, very terrified. Probably because it would get inside of my head and make me. I don't get scared very easily, when it comes to stuff, but if it's using telepathy to instill fear into me, then I'm not gonna, I don't know what I would do. I'd be ecstatic get to see something like that. But I think it'd be frightening, though, nonetheless.
I give you a lot of credit because my ass would be going about 80 miles an hour, speeding up, trying to get rid of it. I'm not stopping for something that big. No offense. I mean, I'm a brave guy. I'm fearless, though, but I'm not stupid either. I'm not going to stop and this thing's going to tear me apart. I don't know what it's going to do. I might roll the window down and try to talk to it maybe, but my first instinct would be to just freeze for a couple seconds and put my foot all the way down the gas pedal and see how fast the car can go and try to get away from this thing. And one of the first instances of the sightings, probably the second sighting they ever had of this thing, was two couples going up to a private spot to have some personal time, and as they were leaving, the Mothman appears. It's flying overhead. They try to lose it. They go faster, and it keeps up with them. It follows them all the way to town, and it suddenly flies off. Can you imagine how terrified they would be from that? A2K, I got a question for you real quick. You claim you had an ex-girlfriend that used to live in the area, and you know some of the local folks. Do the local folks believe in this story, or do they think it's BS? Are they firm believers in Mothman, or is it like, oh, you know, it's like Bigfoot, you know, it's just a thing to celebrate once in a while?
They are firm believers. They are firm believers in both Mothman and Andrew Cold. I've been to Parkersburg, where Andrew Cold is more their thing, but they say stories about the Mothman as well from their neighborhood. They firmly believe it, every drop of it.
Is it true that the locals don't like to talk about it with others, or are they more open? I mean, I guess I'm just confused because I see that, you know, they have a statue of the thing, which, quite frankly, I don't think really accurately resembles the witness accounts. And they also have an annual festival and Mothman parade and stuff, but then you hear that people are afraid to talk about it. But if they're afraid, why do they celebrate it every year? What do you think about that, A2K?
I can't really speak for the Point Pleasant community, as I've not been that far north in West Virginia. The people in the Parkersburg, Marietta area, they're very secret of it, and they didn't want me asking questions the first couple of times I was there. Once my ex-family out there got to know me, they loosened up a little bit, and I met a guy who owned an auto shop and also made moonshine, but that's beside the point. And he told me a little bit more about it, and he was still very tight-lipped on the subject, and wanted me to know that everybody around there believed it was real, and they didn't want anybody fucking poking in their business. Kind of typical, what I would call hillbilly shit, but I also was forewarned they don't go by hillbilly out there, they go by hilljack, and that's derogatory as well.
One of the witnesses said, the Mothman said to them, not said to them though, but they noticed something though. They noticed that you noticed them. That they're aware that you're observing them basically, which is kind of creepy in itself. So what exactly is this thing, man? I mean, it doesn't follow any guidelines of an angel or a demon or even an alien. I mean, there's almost a spiritual aspect to this thing too in some aspects. You know, it can notice that you're watching it. It tries to communicate with you telepathically. It tries to forewarn you of events, prophecies as they call them in the movie and the book. It's almost like it's trying to help us in some ways. It can see the future just a little bit. And because it can see into the future, it's trying to help us. But Weasel Keeper says fallen angel or demon, but fallen angels or demons don't help people. You know, they try to hinder them. They try to do bad things to people. This Mothman creature was trying to do good things. It was forewarning of the bridge collapse. Some say it was forewarning of 9/11, of Chernobyl, of a cave collapse, a mine collapse in Germany. It tries to warn people. Does a demon try to warn people? I've never heard anything like that before. Have you? A2K said, a harbinger of doom. Yes, that's what I call it too, a harbinger of doom. And Scarlet Gold reminds me of the Irish fairies, the She, which also warn people of bad events about to happen.
There's stories all the time about creatures that forewarn of impending doom. The question is, how come in the very same time frame we had alien sightings and Indrid Cold, and then less than 200 miles away we have the Mothman? I would also like to point out that the first sighting of Indrid Cold actually, I believe, happened in New York, Brooklyn, if I recall right, and the first sighting of the Mothman was less than a week after the first sighting of Indrid Cold in New York, but two or three days after the sighting of Indrid Cold in West Virginia.
Let me ask this question to both of you.
They're very close together.
Let me ask you this, A2K. Do you believe the Mothman and Indrid Cold are one and the same, or are they different kind of creatures?
I think they're the same. I believe personally that Indrid Cold was a hunter and a Mothman is something that's doing nothing more than trying to get away.
Now, we have all these so-called races that we really don't know where they stand. We're not even sure if they're real. You know, I cite the Irish fairies. The Finnish believe in the She too. I
believe that Mothman would have been a naturally occurring earth spirit, I guess, if you will. A natural harbinger of doom, but not really doing harm to anybody, and I believe that Indrid Cold was a hunter looking for that entity. Things coincide almost just perfectly.
Go ahead, Scarlett.
My point is that the Mothman may well be of this genre, just because it seems to be a phenomenon that went back to Indian times too. The Indians, I couldn't find much sightings on them, but I did find, you know, references to the fact that they exist. And we have these beings all over, just about any place you go. There's the little folk or the invisible folk, and they're tricksters, and sometimes they also warn you. So maybe this classification you can put the Mothman into.
That sounds like the Skinwalker a little bit, Scarlett. Could it be a Skinwalker, possibly?
Doesn't seem to be as bloodthirsty as most of the Skinwalkers sound.
I've heard some people say that it's a Thunderbird, which is, I guess, some legendary large bird. I think it's like a Native American thing. I personally don't believe that, but there's a lot of people who have suggested it. But I think that exactly, Weasel Keeper. I think that the Thunderbird is a pterosaur, but I'm not going to get into that discussion.
We have somebody in the room who wishes to remain secretive. They claim to see a Mothman-type creature, a Dementor, like from Harry Potter, before somebody dies. Once again, a harbinger of doom. And people who are close to death also see things too. I've been told, and I've read, and I've seen. They'll see a creature that looks like an angel, or like a Mothman, or even see relatives who passed on before them, before they die. Well, this phenomenon, as mysterious and interesting as it is, though, but never before have I seen a whole city who has claimed to see this thing. I mean, you see reports of Bigfoot where one or two people have seen it in the wild in some place, maybe more. But in Point Pleasant, you have over 100 people who claim to have seen the Mothman in various areas at various times, and even during the daytime. And like with John Keel, once you've seen this thing, it affects you the rest of your life. It's like it's instilled in your memory, and you can't get out of your head. And if you ever notice John Keel's writings of his books, it varies from the time before he was interviewing people to the time this is all over with. His writing style has changed because of these events. He was a different person afterwards. Something happened to him. That is for sure. I mean, this isn't some made-up story, some folklore, like Spring-Heeled Jack or the Skunk Ape. There's something to this. And because something happened there, they have festivals every year, like BugOutGirl said. A celebration, like a fair. They have a statue of the Mothman in the city. And as A2K said, they take it very serious there. They're true believers of what happened. And icing on the cake is a bridge collapsing. I mean, it'd be one thing to see this thing, and people saw it, but it's another thing when something tragic happens and this thing forewarned of it. This is what makes this thing so interesting, because it centers around the event that's which 49 people died when the whole bridge collapsed. And afterwards, the Mothman was never seen again in that area. It's been claimed to be seen in other areas, like Homer Simpson, a chatter here at LOP, says people seen the Mothman in the towers as it happened and beforehand. Ah, liberty. I like that. Maybe a fallen angel trying to redeem itself. This is what I'm thinking a little bit too. It fell with Lucifer and it realizes it did wrong. But it's so guilty it can't come back to God, so instead it tries to help humanity out by giving prophecies of forewarnings. A dark angel wanting to redeem. What do you think about that, BugOutGirl? Is that a possibility?
I think it's definitely possible. And I know you don't think it's an angel per se, but maybe we have the wrong idea of what angels look like. I mean, when you look at a picture of an angel, they're white, they have halos, they're very pleasant, very friendly looking. It kind of reminds me of like gray aliens. When you see drawings or sketches of them, they look very cartoony. But I think that the reality is when you see them, they're actually quite terrifying. I think that's the case with angels as well. I think that they're probably quite terrifying. Not exactly what we have in mind when we think of an angel. At least it's possible.
One thing I want to bring up, though, is the people John Keel interviewed were not just, if people call them hicks or whatever, good old boys. They were doctors. They were lawyers. They were policemen. So it just wasn't some, weird person who hides out in his house and, and claims weird stories. They were business people. They were like you and I, which brings more credibility to the story. A doctor is not going to bring up a bullshit story, that will discredit him. I'm not going to a doctor. He claims to see an alien, He's going to come forward because he saw what he thought he saw and he believes in it. No matter what it is, though, they were not afraid to come forward. They want to tell their story to the world. And John Keel wrote it down, and published a book about it. These are outstanding citizens of the community that they came forward. So it wasn't like a one-time thing or a one-night thing. It's happened repeatedly throughout the year until the bridge collapse. And I want you to look up John Keel in your time, maybe even buy his book. Fascinating stuff. He has more than 10 books out there. But the most famous one of all is the Mothman Prophecies, which was made into a movie. So he's a conspiracy theorist like us. He's one of us, actually. But he's also a reporter, a very good reporter who has won awards. So, buy the book, watch the movie, look it up. In my personal opinion, there's something to this. Do I believe there's a Mothman out there? Yeah, I do. I don't know what it is, though. I have clues to what it could be, but I'm not for sure on what it could be, though. Now, BugOutGirl, if you had to pinpoint this, what would you say it is, and do you actually believe the story of the Mothman yourself?
Well, I think there's several possibilities. I don't know if I have one solid theory of what it is. I think it's definitely unique. I don't think it fits a certain mold of any type of idea that we have, angel, demon, alien, intradimensional being. I think it's some type of combination of stuff. It's a shapeshifter of some type. I do believe the witness accounts. I believe what people say when they talk about what they've seen. I know that for certain. Like, I do believe them. I believe those people to be genuine. But yeah, I can't really say with certainty. But I mean, I was leaning towards demon. I'm not entirely convinced that all demons are evil per se. I think they can be controlled to an extent by humans. Maybe that has something to do with it. That's not exactly something that I really want to talk about, but basically, yeah, I definitely wouldn't rule that out. I'd say it's a demon. That would be my top choice, but I don't know for sure. I'm not saying that with certainty.
Now, later on this year sometime, me and my wife got onto our plane to go to Point Pleasant for a nice little road trip. We'll be taking pictures and stuff, and actually I'll be interviewing some people too there. We might do a live on location interview segment for LOP on that. But this has stoked my interest, and I want to go down there myself and see what I can see and maybe try to feel some stuff too, because I'm empathic myself. But I'll take pictures of the statue, the places where the Mothman supposedly was, and if I can, I have to bribe them though, but we'll interview some of the locals. Here's the $20, man. You want $20? Talk about your Mothman experience, or something like that. But I'm sure some people will want to talk about it there, though. I guess the older people there who was there at the time. Let's tell us what they thought about the story and if they've seen the Mothman themselves. So later this year sometime, I don't know when, I will be driving down there, or my wife will be driving down there, and we will have for you first-hand accounts of the Mothman Prophecies, and pictures of the statues and some probably local Mothman steaks or whatever food they have down there. Try the Mothman burger or the Mothman drink or whatever they have down there. But
I would love a Mothman burger right about now. I think you should plan to go down when they have their festival. I have no idea what time of the year they do it, but if you can, go to the festival. I'm sure that you could find somebody there that'd be willing to talk about it.
okay, before I wrap up the show, any final thoughts, Scarlett or A2K or anybody else? Please go ahead.
If you do go down there, I'd be really interested to hear your account when you come back, and I do basics of what went down there. From what I've heard.
If you do go down there, I'd be careful as fuck and be careful who you ask. That's the only advice I have to give, dude. Otherwise, you might disappear up in them mountains.
So just make a video. That'd be cool if you see anything. I'm pretty much just left with more questions than answers, but I believe I've said my piece. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, BugOutGirl. She's done her own shows before herself, but it was fun. We do well with each other. Now, to close out this fascinating topic, the Mothman. Just not urban legend. More than 100 people have seen this creature, this thing, this dimensional being, this demon, this dark angel wanting to redeem, or an alien. And we brought up Ingrid Cold, which is just weird in my opinion. You know, I mean, is it the Mothman? Are they one and the same? I personally think they're different, to be honest. I mean, they look different, they've done different things. No one's ever seen a Mothman come from a UFO. A person has seen Ingrid Cold come from a UFO. Whether you want to believe it or not, there's something to it, though. You have a whole community coming together once a year, throwing a festival because this thing happens. You have a statue of a Mothman. You have a collapsed bridge that killed over 48 people. There is something to this phenomenon. Watch the movie, read the book, look up John Keel. Fascinating stuff. And this Friday shall be the event of the year, the Flat Earth Theory, with special guest, Jibby Jedi. You will want to be there. It's Cool and Luke, wishing you a good night. Peace.